Okay, so yeah, let's talk about this no contact rule. And I think this would be kind of fun to talk about because it's pretty popular. Like, I notice people talk about this all over the place. It's like the number one thing people talk about. And, yeah, I want to throw it into question, which I don't think people typically do. Actually, there's a couple people who do, but their explanations for it are not analytical enough sometimes, I don't think. There's two different no contact rules I want to talk about. So let me explain the notion here. So the idea here is you're in a relationship with someone, and that person breaks up with you. And the key is, they say, employ the no contact rule. If you employ the no contact rule, they will miss you, and they'll come back to you. That's basically what it is. There are two schools of thought. One school of thought is this idea of 30 days or like 60 days, something like that. Some kind of short-term no contact rule. And during that time, your ex will miss you and will come back to you, hopefully, by the end of those 30 days or 60 days. Or at least you should reconnect with them after 30 days or 60 days, something like that. And there's a lot of people who have, a lot of these dating gurus have kind of like a backlash against that idea. They say, no. If you're going to do no contact, you have to go indefinitely. It has to be forever, until they contact you first. So if they contact you, then you can engage in conversation. But they say it's an indefinite no contract rule. And I'm seeing that seems to be like a growing, more popular version, and they really vehemently, what's the word I'm looking for? Critique the people that put forth the 30-day and the 60-day. Well, I got to tell you, I actually have more respect for the 30-day and 60-day theory. That theory actually makes a lot more sense to me. It's the ones that say that you should employ no contact indefinitely. That, to me, is seriously flawed. And it's their reasoning that I think demonstrates how flawed it is. What they will say often is they'll say, well, at least not often, but I've heard a couple of them say, they'll raise the question, they'll say, will your ex forget you in no contact? During this indefinite no contact, and they'll reassure you and say, no, she won't forget you. She won't forget you. And let me give an example. And they'll say, the old friend from first grade. Do you remember that old friend? Do you remember that old friend Derek from first grade? And you'll be like, oh yeah, I do remember that friend from first grade. Did you forget that person? No, you didn't forget that person. In fact, years will go by, decades will go by, and you won't forget that person. That person is still in their memory. And when I hear that, it's just kind of like, okay, that's not what people are saying when they say they're afraid their ex will forget them, right? Sure, of course, their ex isn't going to literally have amnesia and forget who you are, be like, oh, what's your name again? I forgot who you were. No, of course not. That's not what they're saying when they say, I'm afraid my ex will forget me. What they mean to say is that, that they will kind of emotionally forget about you. That their feelings will become so lost and gone that they will feel absolutely nothing for you. And so if you return back to this analogy of the first grade acquaintance, yeah, my friends have forgotten me. Are you kidding me? I have forgotten my friends from first grade. In fact, I think I've literally forgotten a lot of my friends from first grade. I can't think of many of their faces. I can't think of many of their names. But let's say I do remember their names and I do remember their faces. Did I forget about them? Yeah, I actually did. I totally forgot about them emotionally. Do I want to call them up right now? No, I don't. I have no desire to call them up. I have zero interest in that friendship now from first grade. So their very own proof is flawed. I mean, I feel like they disprove themselves with their own proof, with their own analogy. Their analogy does not work. In fact, their analogy proves to me that, well, no contract rule doesn't work. And let's go back to this notion of ex-girlfriend. I mentioned this in the previous video. Your first girlfriend, right? Do you remember your first girlfriend? Yeah, of course I remember her. Right? I remember her name. I remember her face. Sure, and I may even have fond memories, but I forgot about her. Right? Like, there's just two meanings. There's multiple meanings to words, right? And in one sense, yeah, I didn't have amnesia. I didn't forget who this person was. But on the other hand, yeah, I did forget about her. I mean, I don't care about her anymore, right? And nothing in me desires to go back there. Now, if this idea, I mean, so the idea that they're put forth is, oh no, with indefinite time, the absence makes the heart grow fonder, and so the longer the time period, the more they will just miss you, and one day they'll come back. And it's just like, come on, dude, that is so false. Like, we can prove it false by, proof by counterexample, right? So if that's their principle, I'll quickly disprove that through counterexample. The vast majority of people on this planet, I don't talk to anymore. I mean, I have a circle of friends that I know now, but I mean, we go back to high school, college, middle school, elementary, all these thousands of people in my past, I never see them anymore, right? So if this principle is true that they're saying, then those people must be so damn horny for me right now. Like, they must be going like out of their mind crazy for me, right? The no contact rule. I mean, that's absurd. That's completely absurd. So we have clearly disproved it. And think about it. Are you in contact with all of your ex-girlfriends? You are already in no contact with the vast majority of women you've probably met in your life. Right, and I'm sorry if there are women in here. Maybe actually, in fact, these gurus say the same thing about with boys. They say this applies to women and men. So, you are already in no contact with the vast majority of men and the vast majority of women in your life. And it's not like now they're just desperate for you and they want deep romantic relationship with you after all those years of no contact. So this indefinite no contact rule, I don't buy it. And in fact, this might be an interesting video for those of you who are in a scenario like this. I know this happens to a lot of people. It happens to everybody almost, I guess. This is the nature of our modern society. And obviously, it's happened to me. And I think that's maybe why I looked at some of these videos for a little bit. But if you're in that situation, yeah, think about that. Do you really want to employ an indefinite no contact rule? It might work. It might be it might put you in the best situation too. It might be the best scenario. That's what so many people argue, is that nothing's a guarantee. But this is the best possible method. Maybe, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not advising either way. But what I am saying though is that there's a clear flaw. There's a clear flaw. I actually have far more respect for the short-term method, because the short-term method makes sense. You have a deep bond early on, and so that deep bond will remain. In fact, Aristotle says that we are by nature political animals, and then he goes very, very quickly in the next chapter. He says that the most important political relationship is that between a man and woman. In other words, your souls. How do I say this when I say political animal? What he means by political animal is to simply say you are a part of a larger whole. The polis is the city. I don't mean to go too much into this particular subject, but essentially what he's saying is that by nature human beings are designed to connect into as man and woman into one thing, and I think he's right on that. I think that what happens is that the neural systems of the two brains begin to rearrange themselves such that they link together and kind of become a single system. And that single system is what exists between the man and woman. And in fact, this also happens with friends and things, but it's a much more powerful bond with a man and woman. And so I think your neurons are arranged in that order when when the breakup occurs. And so initially, I think that you absolutely feel a great amount of pain, and then your partner will too. Your ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend will feel a great amount of pain too. And that's your best chance, is in those first 30 or 60 days. After 60 days to 90 days or something like that, those emotions will start to fade, and you will start to lose a chance, I think. Generally, I don't think anything works, in my experience. Even no contact with the 30 and 60 day thing. So I don't know. I guess what I mean to say is this. My conclusion is, guys, maybe these gurus don't know what they're talking about. I think reality is better for all of us, and reality is usually when someone breaks up with you, it's done. It's over. That's it. I mean, I really think that's typically what happens. I don't think people typically come running back to each other. I mean, I guess these guys swear by it, I guess. But I think I have successfully disproved the long-term one, though. The long-term no contact rule, the indefinite one. It's disproved. I've demonstrated with proof by counterexample. So the short-term one, like I said, I think it has a bit more validity. I don't even know if that one works, though. So those are my thoughts. See you around. You know what? I want to go back, and I was just listening to that last argument I made. I want to go back and change what I said a little bit. I think it needs to be amended a little bit. I think I disproved the universal principle, right? Proof by counterexample works when the principle is claimed to be universal. But you know what? Proof by counterexample does not necessarily disprove the principle if it's a general principle. And so, I could be wrong. I think what counterexample does is it creates essentially kind of two rules, if you will. The rule that we were just discussing, and then the exception to that rule, right? And then the question then becomes is what creates the exception to the rule? Well, what creates the exception to the rule is some other variable. And so maybe the principle, if qualified with some other variable, could be valid. I don't know. But I just wanted to say that because I like to be precise with my conclusions. I try to be. I'm not always, but to be precise, I proved that the principle is not universal, certainly, and I think that I demonstrated many counterexamples. In fact, like I said, the vast majority of people in my life are basically in no contact with me. So that's a huge number of people in this world, a huge number of counterexamples. So I guess I've largely disproved the principle, but there might be some qualifiers when you consider the other variables that might make certain scenarios different. Yeah, so anyway, just wanted to add that little addition on there to be clear. See you around.